Hello, you're watching AnewZ Morning from Baku. I am James Ezimoha. Here are your top stories. In South Korea, a court approves an arrest warrant for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. Kazakh government's commission investigating the Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash near Aktau to release preliminary findings within 30 days. Russia and Ukraine exchange hundreds of prisoners of war and acknowledge the role of the UAE in mediating the agreement. In South Korea, a court has approved an arrest warrant for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol. He has been suspended from power following his decision to impose martial law. Yoon's lawyer claims the warrant is not valid.
The South Korean court has approved an arrest warrant for impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol over his attempt to impose martial law earlier in December. Yoon is facing criminal investigation into possible insurrection charges and has failed to respond to summons for questioning by the police and the Corruption Investigation Office for high-ranking officials who are jointly investigating whether his martial law declaration amounted to insurrection. Supporters and opponents of the suspended president rallied near his residence in the country's capital, Seoul, following his warrant, and some residents believe the court's decision is fortunate.
Despite repeated summons, President Yoon Suk-yeol has refused to attend, which is even worse. And I think Yoon should have been arrested when he declared martial law, and it was illegal. Although it feels pretty late, I think the warrant is at least fortunate.
Meanwhile, Yoon Suk-yeol's lawyer says his client's martial law declaration did not constitute insurrection, and the arrest warrant against him is invalid.
It is surprising that a warrant requested by an unauthorized body has been issued. Furthermore, it is regrettable that, even though the high-ranking official's crime investigation office had been under the jurisdiction of the Central District Court, the warrant was unprecedentedly requested through the Western District Court.
This is the first arrest warrant issued for an incumbent president in South Korea.
South Koreans visit a memorial altar in Seoul today as they pay tribute to victims of the Jeju airplane crash. The accident, which killed 179 people, marked the deadliest air disaster in the country.
South Korea's acting president, Choi Sang-mo, has declared a period of national mourning until the 4th of January for the lives lost in the crash at Muan International Airport. The acting president, who traveled to Muan upon receiving the news of the incident, held an emergency meeting and declared the area a special disaster zone, pledging the government's support.
I offer my deepest condolences to those who tragically lost their lives. I also feel deeply sorry and would want to comfort the families who are left behind. As the acting head of the government, responsible for the safety and lives of our residents, I feel an indescribable sorrow and profound regret.
A total of 179 people perished after a Boeing 737 aircraft belonging to Jeju Air veered off the runway and slammed into an airport perimeter wall after the landing gear reportedly failed to deploy. 2 survivors, both crew members, were rescued from the back of the plane, which shattered into pieces upon impact. Families of the crash victims were brought to tears as they received the news of their loved ones. Now they turn to the government for help.
I can only accept it, make peace with it. When I think about it, I remind myself that it was an accident. It's something that can happen to anyone. So I've come to terms with it because no matter what I do, my daughter won't come back. I just hope the government can provide some help. I want to bring my daughter's body back home for a proper religious ceremony.
In a statement on social media, plane manufacturer Boeing says they have established contact with Jeju Air and extend their deepest condolences to the affected families. The cause of the crash is yet to be officially confirmed, though a bird strike has been pointed to as a possibility, following a Mayday message from the pilots shortly before the accident. The Transportation Ministry says it has retrieved both black boxes from the crash, and that both flight data and voice recorder devices have been secured.
The black box that was collected will be transferred to Gimpo Airport's Test and Analysis Center on Friday morning to check for the possibility of any analysis before we can start the analysis process. The US National Transportation Safety Board will be joining in the accident investigations.
This accident is South Korea's deadliest civil aviation disaster.
The investigation into the Azerbaijan Airlines plane crash near Aktau, Kazakhstan is moving forward. Kazakh government's commission say preliminary findings will be released within 30 days. Kazakhstan's Deputy Transport Minister Talgat Lastayev confirmed that investigators are in the field phase, gathering fragments and evidence from the crash site. The collected materials are being analyzed in a hangar at Aktau Airport. Meanwhile, the plane's flight recorders have been sent to Brazil for examination. The Embraer 190 aircraft crashed on December 25 while en route from Baku to Grozny, carrying 67 people. Among them, 38 people lost their lives and 29 survived. Azerbaijan has called for a transparent international inquiry to uncover all the details surrounding the incident. According to the preliminary results of the investigation, the plane, while approaching the city of Grozny, was attacked by a Russian air defense system. Ukraine has secured the release of 198 prisoners of war in its latest exchange with Russia. President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed gratitude to the United Arab Emirates and other partners for facilitating the operation. This marks another significant prisoner swap between the two nations amid ongoing conflict. Russia's defense ministry reported a lower figure, claiming 150 prisoners were exchanged. It added that the Russian captives were released in Belarus and will soon return to Russia. Both countries acknowledged the role of the UAE in mediating the agreement. The United Nations Secretary General has delivered his New Year's message, reflecting on a difficult 2024 and urging nations to unite for a better future in 2025. Antonio Guterres warned of the consequences of inaction, but said there is still hope.
The year 2024 has been marked by wars, displacement, and rising inequality, problems that, as UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres noted in his message, have made it difficult to find hope.
Throughout 2024, hope has been hard to find. Wars are causing enormous pain, suffering, and displacement. Inequalities and divisions are rife, fueling tensions and mistrust.
Guterres also highlighted the worsening climate crisis, pointing to a decade of record-breaking heat, including 2024, as a wake-up call for immediate action.
This is climate breakdown in real time. We must exit this road to ruin, and we have no time to lose. In 2025, countries must put the world on a safer path by dramatically slashing emissions and supporting the transition to a renewable future.
The Secretary-General emphasized the importance of global solidarity, citing recent progress, such as the adoption of the Pact for the Future in September, as reasons for optimism. He pledged to stand with those working toward a more peaceful and sustainable world, urging nations to turn 2025 into a new beginning, not as a world divided, but as nations united.
The crisis in Syria has led to the collapse of its electricity infrastructure. This has also resulted in a sharp decline in conventional energy resources. The country's electricity supply has fallen to less than 25% pre-war levels.
The destruction of power plants and critical infrastructure, coupled with difficulties in securing the fuel required to operate them, has reduced Syria's total power generation to below 2,000 megawatts. This limited supply must be distributed across more than 13 provinces. However, electricity is essential for both the country's economy and the daily lives of its people.
The prices must be lowered. They are too expensive for citizens regarding what they earn.
Prolonged power outages have placed a heavy burden on the Syrian population. They've turned to private generators and batteries to produce and store energy. In Zamalka, a town near Damascus, there's been no government-provided electricity for over 13 years. Residents rely on private generators and solar power to meet their energy needs. The sound of generators in the town is deafening, but these machines are a lifeline for those who wish to live there.
The war has destroyed the power grid, which the government has not fixed, So people have started to connect cables from generators to their houses. But the problem is that the people cannot afford it. It costs 50,000 to 60,000 Syrian pounds, around 4 to 4.6 US dollars a week to power just one light bulb.
The main electricity grid is damaged. People use alternative transmission lines to deliver power to homes plunged into darkness. Prolonged power outages have also affected businesses, as the area hosts numerous workshops.
The cost of final product is increasing. Before the war, I only had to pay my cost and the cost of raw materials. But now, I have to add electricity, so the final cost is drastically increasing.
The problems in the energy sector are not limited to power outages.
In response to the humanitarian crisis in Syria, Azerbaijan has dispatched its first humanitarian aid convoy. The shipment primarily consists of food and essential supplies.
Azerbaijan has sent its first humanitarian aid convoy to Syria, carrying around 200 tons of essential supplies. The convoy will travel through Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey before reaching the city of Idlib, where the aid will be distributed to those in need. Turkey's Disaster and Emergency Management Authority will oversee the distribution. This initiative aims to ease the suffering of thousands of people in Syria who have been affected by years of ongoing conflict.
The humanitarian aid convoy will be delivered through the Choban Bay cross point to Idlib city of Syria. Our delegation, led by the foreign minister of Azerbaijan, is now in Syria. They are holding meetings. Yesterday there was a meeting with the foreign minister of the transition government, Ashibani, and the various cooperation areas were discussed, including the rebuilding reconstruction efforts and at the same time continuation of the humanitarian aid to Syria.
The Azerbaijani delegation visiting Syria discussed matters of cooperation between Azerbaijan and Syria. The meeting also addressed the closure of the Azerbaijani embassy in Syria since 2012 and the issue of its possible restoration.
Meanwhile, Syria's de facto leader, Ahmed al-Shara, has shared his vision for the country's future in an interview with Al Arabiya. His remarks covered the plans for constitutional reforms and the transition to state governance.
Syria's de facto leader Ahmed al-Shara outlined a detailed roadmap for the country's future during a recent interview with Al Arabiya.
Drafting a new constitution and the constitutional amendments need a long time by experts. They may need 2 to 3 years, God knows.
Ahmed al-Shara emphasized the need to transition from factional governance to a state-building approach.
A country cannot be run by the mentality of groups and factions. Since we were in Idlib, we are ready for this, psychologically and morally.
He assured neighboring countries that Syria would not become a platform for cross-border attacks, addressing regional security concerns. Optimism also was expressed for improved relations with the United States under President-elect Donald Trump, including lifting sanctions and removing the $10 million bounty on Ahmed al-Shara.
A group of 67 migrants reached Spain's Gran Canary island on a fiberglass boat. This comes as a migrant aid group, Walking Borders, reports that more than 10,000 people have died attempting to reach Spain this year.
It's a decision to try or die. These migrants have risked their lives in search for better living conditions in Europe and have made it to Spain's Canary Islands, which is used as a gateway. Fleeing unemployment, the negative impact of climate change on farming communities, and years of conflict in the Sahel region that includes Mali, they've journeyed on what migrant aid group Walking Borders calls the world's deadliest route. The Red Cross organization is on site to offer assistance and treatment to the migrants. Sadly, many of them don't make it alive. Walking Borders reports more than 10,000 people have died en route to Spain this year. That's nearly 30 people per day, and more than 90% of those deaths happen on the way to the Canary Islands from Africa's Atlantic coast. The rafts used by the migrants are no match for the harsh conditions of the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, like all of them, like all of theirs, dehydration, hypothermia, this is the main cause of death for all of them.
Residents and island officials gather to pay tribute to those who die upon arrival.
It's not just a matter of faith or religion. It's something much more. It's about humanizing, about bringing people closer and giving a voice to all those who can no longer defend themselves. These are the people who couldn't continue with their life projects, and unfortunately, they are the other side of the Canary migration route.
The Canaries have registered the fastest increase in arrivals by sea in the European Union this year. That's according to the EU border agency, Frontex. In February, Spain pledged 210 million euros in aid to Mauritania to help curb human trafficking and prevent boats from setting off. Despite those efforts, Spain's interior minister says they have received more than 57,000 migrants by December. That's 12% more than last year.
Venezuela's Supreme Court has imposed a hefty fine on social media giant TikTok. This follows its failure to prevent the spread of dangerous viral challenges that have harmed minors. The ruling also highlights measures to strengthen the platform's accountability within the country.
Venezuela's Supreme Court of Justice announced that TikTok has been fined $10 million for its failure to stop the proliferation of viral challenges, some of which have caused serious harm to minors. The president of the Constitutional Chamber, Tania D'Amelia, elaborated on the court's decision, highlighting the platform's negligence and the urgent need for safeguards.
Firstly, the company TikTok is fined $10 million payable to the National Telecommunication Commission, CONATEL, within 8 days of the decision's publication on the Supreme Court's website for failing to implement necessary measures to stop the spread of content related to viral challenges. Secondly, TikTok is ordered to establish a representation with its headquarters or office in the territory of Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela to supervise and control the application of technological tools in accordance with the constitutional and legal order of Venezuela in telecommunication and social networks. All this to enhance the security of users and preserve their physical, psychological, and emotional integrity.
This decision follows mounting concerns about the platform's role in spreading harmful content. In November, President Nicolas Maduro directly accused TikTok of enabling challenges that led to the tragic deaths of 2 teenagers. He also proposed stricter laws modeled after Australia's social media restrictions for minors to prevent similar incidents in the future. The fine and the court's directive to establish a local TikTok office signal the government's broader efforts to regulate digital platforms and ensure they align with national laws and safety standards.
A groundbreaking driver development camp in Austria is paving the way for a potential first female Formula One world champion. 6 teenage girls from around the globe are getting a taste of elite training, marking the start of an ambitious journey to shatter barriers in motor racing.
The search for Formula One's first female world champion is gaining momentum. In Graz, Austria, a professional driver development camp organized by the not-for-profit organization More Than Equal is offering 6 teenage drivers from around the globe an opportunity to refine their racing skills. These girls, all aged 13 to 14, are participating in intensive training at AVL Racetech's headquarters. This program is designed as a first stepping stone towards competing in the Formula 4 series, a key milestone on the road to Formula 1.
The goals of this first camp with AVL are really to expose our drivers to what world-class sim operation looks like. How that is a connection between the operator and the driver and the analysis, and understanding how that kind of usage of planning and then using the sim and reviewing what you do to support the development as you start to go through your process of how you learn and how you develop.
The camp incorporates full-motion driving simulators, allowing the girls to develop their skills in a safe but highly realistic setting.
The driving simulator is actually a great training tool. First of all, when you get it wrong on the simulator, it doesn't hurt as much and it's not as expensive on the real track. The other thing is, obviously, in the simulator, we have very reproducible conditions. That means lap after lap, the conditions are the same, the car is the same.
The year-long program includes not just hands-on driving camps, but also technical coaching, psychological support, race preparation, and regular performance evaluations.
And also just from the data analysis workshop, I've learned so much about brake terminology as well as just data analysis, just basically like knowing like my minimum speed and like how much I can push out of the corner, and just many more things that I really think if I wasn't part of this, I think I wouldn't have known. So it's a really great learning time.
The driver cohort is made up of 6 talented girls chosen from hundreds of applicants. More Than Equal says its mission is not just to discover and nurture female racing talent, but to address systematic barriers that hinder women in motor racing. By breaking down these obstacles and fostering the next generation of racers, the organization hopes to bring greater equality to the sport and ultimately crown Formula One's first female champion.
That's all we have for this hour. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned to AnewZ.